What's up, guys? It's Carlos from New Horizons C8, and today is the review for the Attack Blue air filter. We are at 25,000 miles for our C8. It's time to take it out, have a good look at it, get it cleaned, put it back in, and see if there's any difference in performance. If you just got your C8, this is one of the first and easiest installs that you can do for your car to get that extra little bit of horsepower as well as a better throttle response from the get-go. If you've never worked on cars before, but you want to start doing that now on your C8, this is one of the ones to do. We're going to break it down for you step by step so you know exactly how to do it. I'm excited. Hope you're excited about it. With that being said, let's get started on that. So thank you for tuning into the channel. If you like what you see so far, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you know when the next video will drop. So this is one of the first installs a person can do for their C8 to improve overall throttle response and gain a little bit of horsepower compared to the OEM air filter without dishing out a lot of money for a dedicated cold air intake system. If you've never heard of the Attack Blue air filter for the C8 Corvette, it's a special filter that, instead of using traditional filter materials and oils, uses nanofiber technology. What that means is that the material being utilized is ultra fine and will capture particles all the way down to the 0.3 sub-micron level, which is insanely small, all while still allowing great airflow. What that means is better power performance and reducing wear on internal engine areas caused by dirty air. Power gains are around 6 horsepower compared to the factory air filter and is made as a direct OEM replacement. The best part is the fact that there are no oils needed during maintenance and all you need is some soap and water to clean it. Also, if you've ever wanted to work on a car but never have and just got your C8, this is a great way to get your feet wet and get your hands dirty. It's an awesome first thing to do as you start working on your C8 and really start heading towards that next level connection with this awesome vehicle. If you're looking to install this air filter new into your C8, the how-to process is exactly the same minus the cleaning part, which is only required after 25,000 miles or every year, whichever comes first. If you're interested in this for your C8, I'll have links in the description below so you know where you can get it. With that being said, let's get started on this how-to video and review the wear of the Attack Blue air filter for the C8 Corvette. So to start, the tools needed are pretty simple and straightforward. First, you'll need a bit and socket driver or wrench, 8mm socket, a T15 Torx bit, some Dawn dish soap, a water and hose, and a large bucket. Also, depending on your height, you may find a stepping stool or similar will help in reaching for some of the bolts, which we'll explain in the how-to. Now, the very first thing you'll need to do to reach the air filter is to remove the trunk carpet lining. In order to do that, you'll need to remove the trunk roof mounts, cargo net holders, and 4 plastic trim plugs. By doing this, you can then remove the trunk carpet lining, which will come out as a single large piece and allows us to get to the trunk panels behind. Taking off the trunk roof mounts, use T15 Torx bits to remove the 4 bolts that hold the piece in place. The holes to the bolts have deep wells, so you should be able to just unscrew the bolts and remove the whole piece instead of trying to fish out those pieces as you're taking them out. Next are the cargo net holders. These are pretty easy as they're simple twist off by hand. You'll want to make sure to take off the right and left side ones that are located just below the trunk roof mounts. All other cargo net holders can stay and won't be in the way. After which you can focus on removing the plastic trim plugs. To do that, I found it a bit easier and less risk of ripping the carpet lining by pulling the top of the lining back a small amount in order to make room for my hand to come underneath and push out the plug. You can also accomplish this by using a trim tool kit, but it's not absolutely necessary. At this point, you can now remove the trunk carpet lining and place that to the side. So now we can look at removing the trunk panel, which will expose the air box section we are trying to get to. To do this, you will need to remove 19 T15 Torx screws that surround the large panel in front. Not difficult, but depending on your height, if you have certain car options like the high wing, it may become a challenge to reach certain bolts moving forward. I'm 6 foot even, and in my case, I have just enough reach to get to where I need. Anyone shorter may run into issues where that stool mentioned before can make it a little easier to reach things. If you're wondering why in the world this panel needs 19 of these screws to hold it in place, you're not alone. I was wondering the same thing myself, and while I can't directly speak for the GM engineers that designed this specific piece, my engineering impression based on this layout and design is probably due to two main reasons. One of those is aiding in sealing the trunk compartment from the rest of the engine bay. The second is structural, as the panel serves to help maintain the rigidity of the trunk area from the forces of the car as it flexes and such during high G-force cornering and handling. Since this panel is relatively thin but slightly rigid, engineers can use that rigidity to support the trunk but need to distribute that loading as evenly as possible, which in this case, more screws are better. Now with all those screws removed, you can easily lift the panel out of the trunk and set aside. From here, you now have access to the airbox section. In order to remove the airbox panel, you'll have 6 8mm bolts that need to be unscrewed with 3 spread on the top and 3 on the bottom. Again, the bottom middle bolt may be a bit hard to reach to because of how it's positioned deep in the trunk. If you're having trouble reaching it, you may want to grab a step stool to help you along. With all 6 bolts removed, you can now remove the airbox panel. There's also a rubber seal that will most likely come off while you're removing the airbox panel, and you'll need to reset that later. Regardless, you can remove that rubber seal and place it aside as well for the time being. Finally, with those removed, you can now have access to your air filter and can remove that. There's no bolts holding it in place, and simply pulling it out backwards in a single motion does the trick. With this, we can now have a first look at our Attack Blue air filter that has just over 25,000 miles on it. As you can see, after so many miles, it definitely is dirty and does not retain any blue color from when it was new in the box. Overall though, the filter seems to be in a good structural shape. So to do the cleaning of the filter, place some Dawn dish soap into a bucket and fill with water. I'm using a clear plastic tub in my case so I can show the level of dirt that is left after cleaning. If you have something similar, that will work just as good. I didn't find any real answers as to how much soap you should put in my research, but found anywhere from a 110 to 120 soap to water ratio should do the trick. Once filled, place your air filter inside your bucket and add water if necessary to make sure your filter is completely submerged. With this, you'll want to leave it soaking for about 10 to 15 minutes with an occasional shake of the filter to help agitate the dirt off. So during this time, I took the opportunity to do a quick clean of my wheels and get rid of some of the brake dust that's on them. I haven't yet had the opportunity to replace the pads with ceramic versions. This would be the best way to get rid of the issue, and we intend to make a future how-to video out of it. In the meantime, I found the most effective wheel cleaner to be Meguiar's all-wheel cleaner, which uses an iron dissolver compound that effectively removes a large amount of the brake dust that builds up. It's reduced my wheel cleaning time from about 45 minutes to as low as 10 to 15 minutes and is safe on all wheel types. Usually I'm able to make a single bottle last around 3 sets of wheel cleanings if I'm using a power washer and brush with it. That being said, you can get the same level of clean with a simple garden hose and no scrubbing by using just a little bit more product. Ideally though, for it to work most effectively, you want to use this on wheels that are completely dry and cool without being in direct sunlight, and work one wheel at a time. That being said, sometimes that's a tall order to ask, and I found it still works effectively regardless if you're working in direct sunlight and the wheels are warm. Still, to use it, simply apply the wheel cleaner liberally on the wheels, which comes out as a white solution that turns purple as it chemically reacts with the brake dust and grime. Let the cleaner sit and do its work for about 2 to 4 minutes. The biggest thing is to make sure that the product doesn't dry on the wheels. It shouldn't hurt the wheels if it happens a couple times, but you don't want to consistently keep doing that each time you're cleaning to prevent film spots that can be hard to get out. To prevent that, simply spray a few times while you're waiting for the chemicals to work in order to keep the moisture level up. From there, it's a simple rinse with water and you can see effectively where all the brake dust and grime has come off. And finally, just a quick dry with either some kind of air blower or towel will help finish the job. We'll be doing a full review of wheel cleaner comparisons, but for now, this was a good use of my time while I was waiting for the air filter to soak. Now that the filter has had time to soak, the last steps of cleaning is to take the water hose and spray inside while aiming the stream outwards. This is important as your goal is to push out the dirt from the direction it came from, which is outside of the filter, as opposed to pushing it in further. Another very important thing is by no means use a power washer or compressed air to try and get further cleaning done or quicken the drying time. Those methods can and will damage the nanostructure of the filter and ultimately compromise the effectiveness of the part. So looking at the filter afterwards, we can see some improvement in how it looks and see some of the original blue color. To see how effective the cleaning was though, we need to take a quick look at the water it was sitting in earlier. As you can see, there was a huge amount of dirt on this filter that is now inside this tub. It's even so thick that you can't even see any light passing through it. Generally, whenever I do a clean of anything that has this much dirt and gunk, I'll usually repeat the cleaning process, which not only makes sure that there isn't any remaining dirt left, but tells me how effective my initial clean was. So I'll give this filter another soak in some new soap water and let it sit again for another 10 minutes to see where it ends up. After that is soaked a bit, all that's left is to rinse out the water like the first time, and then let it sit out in the sun until it's dry, which for me was about an hour in 85-degree morning Texas weather, but maybe slightly different depending where you live. You can give a light shake or swing to try and get some of the loose water off, which I found sped up the drying process slightly. While the filter dries, we can see the water from the second soak is a lot clearer, meaning that we got the job done pretty well the first time through to clean this filter. If you're doing this soon for your C8, I'd say a single soak will get you through the job. So now the air filter is completely dry, and looking at it, we definitely see the blue tint of the nano filter materials peeking through. Definitely not as bright as it was from the factory, but is noticeably clear and looks to be in good shape. And now it's time to put that clean air filter back in the C8. A little side note, if you haven't bought this filter for your C8 yet but want to, both the uninstall and reinstall of this filter is exactly the same, with the exception you're just simply replacing the filter and not doing a cleaning. For the reinstall, you're simply doing everything you did to uninstall the air filter, but going in reverse order. So starting off, you'll want to place back the rubber seal that goes along the edge of the air filter box. In this case, it's important to note that there are tabs that will need to be lined up in order for the seal to sit properly and are located on the top and bottom edges. The seal only fits one way, so if you're finding yourself needing to stretch sections to make the tabs fit, you may want to take a quick look and see if it's aligned properly. You also may need to use a stool to help you reach further into the well if you're not fully able to reach in all the areas. Next, you can place your clean air filter back into your air box with the rubber tabs facing up. The filter sits in a rubber groove inside the air box, which should go in with little to almost no force and stay in place. Once the filter is placed, you can go ahead and reinstall the air box panel. I generally start with the top middle bolt, which is not fully tightened yet, to keep it in place and allow me to install the other bolts. I'll use the same principle as tightening lug nuts on wheels and use a star pattern to ensure I'm evenly tightening all the bolts, along with a final tighten check afterwards. Once the bolts are installed, you do want to do a quick visual to make sure that the rubber seal has seated properly and is not spilling out anywhere. Some of the spots on the lower side are obviously difficult to spot, but a mirror or phone camera can be a quick solution to get around that. After that, you're ready to install the trunk panel, which is again just the opposite process from when you removed it initially. I'll use a similar method as with the airbox of using the center bolt to help place and align the panel, hit the corners to further align things, and then install the rest of the screws accordingly. And finally, we can install our trunk liner, which again installs the same way as when we took it out. Initially starting with the plastic trim plugs and working our way to the trunk roof mounts. And with that, you have successfully cleaned and reinstalled your Attack Blue air filter. Now all that's left is to see how this car feels after the filter's been cleaned. So we took the C8 on a quick drive afterwards around the area. While there wasn't any noticeable difference in power coming off the lines from hard acceleration, which gives the impression that your overall power band isn't drastically affected, we did notice a sharper throttle response when we were going through and exiting corners at a spirited pace. This makes sense from an engineering perspective, as your improved airflow will make throttle response more effective when making the slight changes in your throttle input. So examples of where you would see this kind of difference best is when you're rolling on the gas exiting a corner in track day situations. And that completes our how-to and review of the TAC Blue air filter. If you have any questions about this how-to or would like to know more, please feel free to comment below and let us know. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. If you like what you saw, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see, and we'll see you next time.